Gutierrez. You're recognized. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, before I ask the good senator, just on those points earlier with the DDP, I'd like to ask them po, to the Dangerous Drugs Board po, Mr. Chair, if I'd like to ask them.
DDB?
Sorry. Mr. Chair, thank you. To DDB lang po, I hope you understand. We're not here to argue po, no? You're the experts. Kayo po talagang nakakalam sa statistics. Ngunit, I think you'd understand our surprise po, no, with your results. Just to really hammer down, sabi po niyo 95% sure. You have the statistical background to back it up. However, I think we'd find it hard to believe po, no? Because when we're talking about this, especially on the topic of drug use, there would be a strong response bias to this po, no? Because this is not necessarily a behavior that you would willingly admit to in a survey. And I'm sure you have the science to back it up, that you consider this pa rin, but you still remain positively confident in the numbers, the estimates that you've given. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The survey instruments and the methodologies were framed in such a way that will still maintain the authenticity of the answers of the respondents as much as possible.
And despite this, there's no observable difference given the drug war. I mean, I think that's where most of the congressmen are expressing their disbelief. Because you have your survey, your data points are 2015 and 2019, tama po ba? Yet, during supposedly the peak of the drug war between 2016 to 2018, it's had only an effect of 4% for drug users.
For the drug users. And based on the data presented from the National Household Survey, yes, but we emphasize that there is a continuous downward trend, which could be attributed on the policies, systems, and mechanisms that has been institutionalized through the National Anti-Drug Strategy Framework, which we are implementing on both drug supply and drug demand reduction, together with all the task agencies mandated to implement these in their respective programs and priorities.
Thank you. And just to be clear, the DDP, just to distinguish the difference, the DDP is more on the policy consideration side in support of the Office of the President, while the PDEA is the drug enforcement side po, no?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Do you make use of any other method of coming up with these estimates aside from your survey, or you're really just relying on this every 3-year household survey po?
Specific for the drug user data, Mr. Chair, yes po.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'd like to direct my next question to the PDEA through ASEC Gumban, perhaps. ASEC, good evening. Do you also, as the enforcement agency charged with, drug use, do you concern yourself also with statistics such as that on the drug users, or you're purely on the drug supply side lang po?
We get the data also from Dangerous Drugs Board regarding how many users that we have.
Okay, so
that is the accurate one.
So you make use of the DDB statistics also. So the PDEA would likewise stand by the statistics that are presented by
Yes,
DDB.
Mr. Chair.
So it's shocking to see po, no? I agree with the finding, the conclusion of Congressman Abante. Nakakagulat po, no? Na despite the drug war from 2016, it would appear there was no tangible acceptable difference po, no reduction in the drug users. So that's something I think that the committee would have to consider in its committee report in relation to the drugs and EJK portion of the Quad. With that, Mr. Chair, thank you, DDB and PDEA. I'd like to now ask former Senator Trillanes regarding the presentation earlier. Senator, good evening po.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, I'll make this short, just a few slides. I'm sure the other colleagues have some questions. Pero nabanggit po ni just as a background po, no, former Senator Trillanes, can you give us a background of how you would be the right person to explain po yung Las Cañas affidavit? Because as we understand, of course, unfortunately, as much as we'd want to have Las Cañas present the affidavit himself, he's not around. What is your experience or relation po to Las Cañas that you would be presenting his testimony here tonight?
When he was still in the country, kami po yung nag-provide sa kanya ng security and safe houses, no? Then ang ginawa nila Duterte and ng DOJ, they filed they fabricated cases against him para ma-issuean siya ng warrant at makulong siya, ma-silent siya. So by then, he was able to slip out of the country even before the warrant was issued, and we facilitated that, no? Kasi hindi pa naman siya fugitive, so we're still not breaking any laws. So we were able to do that, at they made sure na ano pa, no? They followed through, kinancel po yung kanyang passport, at pinasahan siya ng red notice sa Interpol. But by then, nakapag-seek siya ng asylum somewhere. So, yan po ang background nun. Then, since kami po yung unang nag-file ng communication at sa ICC, meron po kaming coordination with them. We pass information with them, and hindi po yan unpatriotic, no? In fact, on the contrary, that is a patriotic thing to do nung mga panahon na walang masilungan o masakluluhan ang mga kababayan natin. We did the right thing. Member pa tayo ng ICC at that time, no? Hindi po tayo we're not dealing with some shady organization. So, kuwan po, nagkakaroon po ng ugnayan through intermediaries. Tapos, eventually nga, we were able to get hold of that 186-page affidavit. Then, meron siyang video na patutuo while he's signing, and yung conclusion binasa po niya. So yun po ang naging kuha namin standpoint. Sabi ko nga po, pwede naman pong i-question yung authenticity niyan, pero the ICC, doon na po sila sa Witness Protection Program, at hindi lang po yan, natapos na po yung kanyang yung testimony niya. So even before the trial began, or even before the trial begins, tapos na ho siya, because alam nila kung gaano ka-critical yung kanyang testimony. So to rule out any scenario na habulin siya ng mga assassins para ma-preempt yung trial, nakuha na po. So, duly represented yung camp ni Duterte ng isang ICC-appointed defense lawyer. So, the rights of both parties were protected.
Thank you. So, Senator Trillanes, your relation po with Las Cañas is you've helped facilitate the cooperation po with the ICC, tama po. So, although the affidavit might not be, he's not here to testify it on his behalf, you would necessarily have knowledge po of the facts that at least that he relayed to you prior to his having left the country, tama po ba?
Opo, exhaustively, we interviewed him. No, and one particular trait of Mr. Las Cañas, as I mentioned earlier, meron siyang photographic memory. He can rattle off names, places. Talagang at we did a lot of vetting, validation ng mga sinasabi niya, at nag-check out. Kaya eventually doon. And he has no reason to lie, no? In the first place, he was being rewarded generously by Duterte, kasi one of second in command yan dun sa buong DDS structure sa Davao. So he was rewarded generously, at pati nung nagkaroon siya ng kidney transplant, binigyan siya ng pinacilitate yon. Pero talagang nagkaroon siya ng some form of epiphany. It's so powerful na hindi niya talagang in his words, parang he had to turn to the light, no? And kahit na ni-risk niya yung buhay niya, buhay ng pamilya niya, but gusto niya ng some form of redemption. So yun po ang nakuha namin.
So, Senator Trillanes, at the time that Las Cañas had this epiphany of sorts, or when he cooperated with the ICC, would you say that these admissions were adverse to his interest? At that time, was there a falling out already with the former president, or
Opo. Even before siya lumabas, nagkaroon siya ng yung unang parang conscience attacks, mga 2014, 2015. So, ang initial na sinasabi niya, hindi lang siya tumatanggap na ng mga liquidation missions. Tapos, eventually, nung naging presidente si Duterte, gusto niya na kumbaga mag-mainstream, no? Kaso, binigyan siya ng mission which was to have me killed, no? Hindi niya na kinaya yon, hindi niya na tinanggap. Pumunta muna siya sa mga religious personalities. Then, itong mga religious personalities eventually ang nag-arrange sa amin na ma-interview siya. But, he appeared initially sa Senate kasi talagang binantayan siya ng gusto. So, nagsinungaling siya. The first appearance. Then, after the New Year of 2016, na siya. Completely nag-turn na siya. He wanted to tell all. Even dito siya nagsabi sa Pilipinas at the risk of his own life. At kaso nung nakita namin that we cannot protect him anymore, tinulungan namin yung paglabas niya out of the country.
Thank you. Senator, so with that po, as much as we'd like to give credence to the testimony of Mr. Las Cañas, we'd still have to vet and,
Yes.
perhaps we just only prove it through circumstance na lang po, no?
Yes.
He mentioned, and as you presented, a few names that were allegedly yung mga competition daw po ni Mr. Michael Yang. And I think some of the names mentioned were Alan Yap, Danny Ong, and Philip Lam.
Yes. And Joel Ko.
And Joel Ko. Senator Trillanes, all of these cases of kidnapping po, yung kidnapping incidents, these are all drug-related po ba?
Yes. Ang ginagawa kasi sa kanila, parang yung dito sa testimony ni Colonel Garma, merong parallel structure. There is the regular police organization, then meron silang special operations group. Yan yon ang ito yung heinous crime investigation unit. So kaya ganon. So when they do the liquidations, wala na mag-iimbestiga kasi sila po yon, no? So binibigyan sila ng information, itong tao na ito ay drug pusher or drug dealer. So yun na yun. They will execute sila. So yun ang information sa kanya. Pero ang sinabi niya, dito sa apat na ito, pinagkakitaan pa nila. Binigyan sila ng authority na kidnapin muna, abduct, tapos kontakin yung pamilya para magkuha ng ransom, para daw tumaas yung kanilang operational funds. Yes.
Senator, would you know if these 4 cases were investigated? These were all in one locality po ba sa Davao?
All in Davao City, Mr. Chairman. And sabi nga niya, lahat po ito nasa record. They can check out the Davao City Police Office to record. Tsaka may mga kamag-anak po ito. Sabi niya, nagbigay itong mga ito. Kaya he's very confident about all of these cases that he revealed dun sa kanyang affidavit.
Mr. Chairman, do we have a representative of the PNP? I don't think meron po, no? So, Mr. Chair, may we ask PIDEA po siguro through ASEC Gumban. Mr. Chair, are we familiar with these cases po? Yung kay Alan Yap, Danny Ong, and Philip Lam? And I think Joel Ko?
Joel Ko.
Joel Ko?
Yes.
We will check with the records, Mr. Chair. We'll check with the records.
We'll just request po siguro from the PDA if they can submit to the committee po records on this alleged kidnappings, allegedly drug-related kidnappings. Likewise, Mr. Chair, we'd also like to request a report siguro from the PNP. I understand we've had some representatives earlier, pero baka wala na po sila, and probably they would not be the right persons po, no, through the committee secretariat. Or are they present now?
Mr. Chairman, idagdag ko lang, Mr. Chairman, na minention din niya one specific case na inutos ni ni Duterte, nag-pass through kay Bongo, is itong kay Christopher Yu, who was killed dito daw sa City of Dreams noong 2016, just a few weeks or months ng into their presidency. So, verifiable siya.
Sigo. Mr. Chair, in that case, through the committee secretariat, maybe also a request siguro from the PIDEA. So I think list na lang po ito, no, to the PIDEA and the PNP for the reports on Mr. Alan Yap, Danny Ong, Philip Lam, Joel Ko, and Mr. Christopher Yu. Tama po ba? And that reminds me po, Senator Trillanes, si Christopher Yu, this was one of the persons mentioned that allegedly was identified through LTO resources. Tama po ba?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Did Mr. Las Cañas give any further explanation po on sino po itong nag-provide ng names and addresses by tapping the LTO? Naging regional director po, I believe, no?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ang nakuha ko lang yung surname, but the video is with the committee secretary, so pwede po nilang makuha yung exact name. Opo.
Yun yung si Mr. De Guzman po, tama, no?
Mr. De Guzman,
Okay.
who was a parang low-level employee nasa Davao pero nakakuha na nila ng data. Tapos nung presidente na-reward na ginawang ano.
Sige po. In that case, Mr. Chair, may we ask through the committee secretariat siguro confirmation from the LTO for a certain Mr. De Guzman who was in the area of Davao during that time. And perhaps if the committee is so like-minded, we could invite him at another time. Mr. Chair, actually, another interesting thing that we've seen from the presentation of the good senator were the supposed killings and release po sa Dumoy raid. But I think we've had an extensive discussion on this already. I think we'll all be just waiting for the invitation of SPO for SPO for Carillo po, no?
Yes.
So I think we've already heard earlier na on the side of the PDEA, they've said nag-turn over sa BID. Yung BID naman, they said nag-release or turn over. So I think we'll have to rely on the invitation for SPO Carillo. So I don't think I'll have any further questions on that.
Mr. Chairman, I think very critical din yung sa Bureau of Immigration. If indeed tinurn over nila Director Wilkins Villanueva yung 11 na Chinese. And if so, kung totoong, ito nga, nag-intervene si Duterte as mentioned dun sa news article. Because we maintain na if Las Cañas were to be believed, pinatay niya na nung January 1, early morning, itong 11 na ito. So, fiction na yung story that happened after. So, if may proper turnover ng live bodies ito eh. So, talagang may proper documentation to. And I think the Bureau of Immigration of Region 11 would be hard put in fabricating such documents. Wala akong aamin dyan.
And I would agree po, Mr. Senator. And in fact, I think that's what we've come to the conclusion earlier when we were discussing in Dumoy raid. Aside from the testimony of SPO for Carillo, we also want to look into the reports of both the BID and the PDEA regarding that incident. And I think with that enough corroborating evidence, the truth will come to light. So we'll just have to wait for the next hearing po if we're able to locate and hear from SPO for Carillo.
Yes.
One more interesting killing po that we've heard po from the testimony of Mr. Las Cañas. Maybe ask po siguro yung PDEA also if they could confirm that there was a laboratory, Shabu laboratory in yung Green Heights daw po.
We are looking into our records, Mr. Chair. I just heard that Green Heights. What we know is Duboy.
Well, I think it should be cause for concern po, no? And I think aside from the mention of yung Shabu Drug Labs Green Heights, there was also mention of a killing of a construction worker. So I think this should also have a record with the PNP. So likewise, Mr. Chair, may we ask the committee secretariat to request from the PDEA and the PNP records in relation to yung Green Heights killing, the drug raid, and yung death ng itong construction workers. Actually, Mr. Chair, for the rest of my questions...
Mr. Chairman, in the affidavit of Mr. Las Cañas, he gave a more detailed narration of that specific event and he was able to provide a name of I think the foreman, because they were the informants of that supposed raid, but because Mr. Duterte was able to know about the impending raid, he informed them and he then killed the informants. So I don't think it would be in any record of the PNP and PDEA because they swept it under the rug. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Senator. But we have to exert those efforts to have a final determination by the PNP and the PDEA. And if indeed there are no records, then we'll have to rely on other sources to confirm po, no? With that, Mr. Chair, I'll yield to other interpolators po. Maraming salamat po, Senator.
Okay,
Salamat
thank
po.
you. Congressman Gutierrez. The next to interpolate is Congressman Paolo Ortega. You have
Thank
10
you,
minutes.
Mr. Chair. I have a few questions to the former Senator Trillanes. Former Senator Trillanes,